The time right now is 25 minutes past midnight on November 8th. Now the significance of that date and time is the fact that we are now under 24 hours until God of War Ragnarok releases. Wow, what a journey it's been, what a time. It's been 4 years, I think I calculated yesterday, over 1,600 days since I personally beat God of War 2018. And we've all been waiting since that time for this sequel, and it's been 1,600 plus days with a whole pandemic in between, but we're finally here, and it feels surreal to think that we're finally here. Now I wanted to make this video just to openly discuss why I love the God of War franchise and always have, and why this franchise means a lot to me, and I have a lot of memories with the franchise. It's one of my favorite video game franchises, and it's been that way from the very beginning of the franchise, and I just want to talk about it really. First things first, I will be doing coverage on God of War Ragnarok, of course. I don't know to what extent. I'll probably do I will do a review of the game when I beat it, and then I'll more than likely have plenty to say about it in detail, so I'll probably do a spoiler video about it as well. But I'll probably do some other videos surrounding the game at some point as well. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep up with that content if you haven't already. But let's talk about God of War, man. Like, this is such a classic franchise for me personally, and one that fills me with nostalgia. Now, for people that know me, I love Greek mythology, and I've been that way since a kid. There were a couple of things that were really kind of triggered my interest in Greek mythology at a young age. Clash of the Titans was one of them, so the classic movie, and then they did the 2010 movie. That was something that really kind of amplified my interest in Greek mythology. But I think even before my interest in those films came God of War. Now, God of War is of course a much more fantastical take on Greek mythology, but Greek mythology is fantasy anyway. Those original games, I remember when they came out, so 2005 and 2007 I believe, for God of War and God of War 2 on the PS2. And then of course you had the PSP games, Chains of Olympus, can't remember what year that came out, and Ghost of Sparta, which I think was 2010, 2011. Fond memories of all of those games. And then you had the end of the trilogy, which was God of War 3 in 2010. And we'll talk about that in detail in a minute specifically. And then of course you've got God of War Ascension that came out in 2013, then God of War 2018, and now we have Ragnarok approaching tomorrow. Can't believe I'm saying that. God of War Ragnarok is coming out tomorrow. I've actually got the games here because I still own them. So the God of War collection on PS3, which included the HD remasters of God of War 1 and 2. We've got the God of War collection 2, which included the HD remasters of the PSP games for PS3. So that's Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. God of War 3, can't wait to speak about that in a moment. God of War Ascension, and I left God of War 4 upstairs because I completely forgot about it, but there's that one as well. Now, I actually wanted to play through the original trilogy in the lead up. In fact, I wanted to play through all of them in the lead up to Ragnarok, and I was initially going to start that journey a couple months back, and I stalled on it for whatever reason. Left it really late, and it got towards this past weekend, and I thought, I haven't played any of them through again like I wanted to. So I was going to plan to play through the original trilogy at least over the past weekend. As I was doing it, I started to realize that was just not realistic with the free time that I had. So I only ended up playing through the very first game and a bit of God of War 2. God of War 3 I don't actually need to play because I've played that game so many times that I don't even, forget any aspect of it. I remember all of it in my head. In fact, God of War 3 is probably the one, I don't tend to play video games multiple times. That's only restricted for like favorites. It's very rare, and even for some games I absolutely love, Even some of my favorite games of all time, I've only ever played through once. I very rarely touch a single player campaign multiple times, unless it's for trophies. God of War 3 might be the video game that I've replayed the most in terms of storyline, start to end. I think I've beat that game 5 or 6 times. Multiple times on Titan mode as well. So God of War 3 released in 2010 on PS3, and I beat it on Titan mode back then and got the Platinum Trophy, which back then, when I was 15 years old, that was a big achievement, because that game was hard on Titan mode. I remember Hades put me through hell, and Zeus at the end. And then when the remastered version came out on PS4 in 2015, I went and beat it on Titan mode again and got the Platinum for it on PS4 as well. So I got the Platinum for God of War 3 both times. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And it is, at this current stage, my favorite God of War game, but we'll get onto that in a minute. It was quite an interesting experience for me, replaying the first game this past weekend, because it had been so long since I played it. And you can tell it's the first entry in the franchise. You know, it's not as exciting as some of the games that followed, but you can really appreciate when you play it under the lens of it being the first in the franchise, and to see where this franchise is now gone because of it. You can really appreciate it as you play it. And one thing that I find really interesting about that first game is a large portion of it, especially throughout the middle of the game toward the end, is like one giant puzzle. As you're in Pandora's box, it's constant puzzles around the combat, and I kind of like that aspect of it. And some of the later games did incorporate that as well, but I think for a first outing, that's one of the things that really stood out. And of course the story and the great flashbacks, and the good animation that they had within those flashbacks for his time, telling Kratos' story, telling us about his journey, giving the reveals of what he did to his wife and daughter, showcasing that Kratos, in fact, is Negro status, because Kratos is a black man. And it's one of those things, because a lot of God of War fans now, it's actually quite crazy to see how big this franchise has become, and it makes you as a day one fan feel really proud, because God of War, even up to God of War 3, niche isn't the word, but it was not really that mainstream game. You know, it had a big fan base, but it wasn't fully mainstream. Now God of War is literally the poster boy for PlayStation, you know, and will literally drive console sales. It's kind of crazy to see that growth. But a lot of people who jumped in with either God of War 3 or Ascension or God of War 2018, they think Kratos' skin is just, it is what it is. But what they don't realize, and it's revealed in the flashback of the first game, is that Kratos is actually black. And that was obvious anyway, just from the way he acts, you know. Spartan Rage is essentially what I like to describe as Kratos having a Super Saiyan nigger moment. Now, if you've seen Boondocks, you know what I'm talking about when I say a nigger moment. And it's like he's having a Super Saiyan version of that. The way he reacts to things, his no tolerance approach, it was very clear from the beginning that Kratos was black. Also, the 2 voice actors that have ever voiced Kratos, black actors. So it was very obvious. But what happened in the original game and what they described is once Kratos killed his wife and daughter, he was burdened with the memory of that sin. And one of the ways in which he carried that burden, quite literally, was the fact that his ashes were bound, or sorry, their ashes were bound to his skin. That's why his skin is that grey colour, because it's the ashes of his dead wife and dead daughter. But it was interesting to see that with the perspective of playing all of the games now over the years, to go back to that first game and see that kind of origin story of the Kratos we know. It was quite entertaining to witness that. God of War 2, of course, introduced a lot more mechanics, gave us more of the gods, a much more expansive story, more boss battles, etc. It's a game that's held in high regard, of course. And one thing that I will actually do, so I've mentioned I'll do reviews for God of War Ragnarok, both spoiler free and spoiler. One thing I definitely want to do once I've played through Ragnarok is I'll do a video ranking the whole franchise. I wanted to do that for a while, but I decided I might as well wait until Ragnarok comes out so I can rank all of it. The PSP games I have fond memories of, especially Chains of Olympus. I can't remember whether I played Ghost of Sparta directly on the PSP or if my first time playing it was through the PS3 remaster. I can't remember, but either way, I did enjoy both of those games. Now that I think about it, I think I did play Ghost of Sparta for the first time through the PS3 remaster, so it was only Chains of Olympus that I played on PSP, which I should still have the physical copy for upstairs as well, because I still kept all my original PSP games. But I don't remember much about either of those two games. I know that Ghost of Sparta has got his brother, but Chains of Olympus, I can't remember the story for that one at all. It's been a very long time, probably been over 10 years since I played that, because the last time I would have played that would have been when I played it on the PS3 remaster, so it's been a long time. But what I'll probably end up doing is once I play through Ragnarok, I'll probably want to go through the whole franchise again. And because I do want to get Platinum on every single game. I've got Platinum on God of War 3 and God of War 3 Remastered, but I want to get Platinum on literally all of the games, so I'm going to end up playing through them all. But God of War 3. Okay, let me sit up for this one. As I've said before, God of War 3 is one of my favourite video games of all time. It's my favourite God of War game, and I have very strong memories of playing that game. It was back in 2010, the game had come out, and I didn't actually buy it, or it didn't get bought for me. I actually borrowed it from a friend at school and played it, and I was blown away with that game in so many ways, whether it be the graphics, the way that it, plays out with no camera cuts. It's just that continuous kind of long take for the whole game. How immersive it was. But what really blew my mind as a 15-year-old and was so cool, and it still is now, and it's why the game's my favorite, one of the key reasons, and why I think it's hard to match, is the way in this franchise you get a build-up of the gods, but you rarely see them. You see Zeus in God of War 2, maybe a couple others, I can't remember, but they're kind of hidden and you kind of hear about them. So the franchise itself up until that point kind of maintains and amplifies the myth of the gods, because you hear about them, you believe in their existence, but you don't actually really get to interact or see them that often. God of War 3 blows the lid on that, and I love the opening of that game. First of all, how it picks up directly after the cliffhanger ending of God of War 2. But also, how in that opening you get an immediate showcase of the gods on Mount Olympus, and how they all kind of spur into action when they realize Gaia and Kratos is coming for them. And the designs, everything from the designs to the powers to the personalities of those gods are so distinct in this entire franchise. I absolutely love it. But this game is brutal, man. Talk about Kratos being a nigger, man. This nigga off the chain in this game. No pun intended, but he is off the chain. God of War 3, for those that haven't played it, spoilers, is literally Kratos just basically wiping out the entire Greek pantheon of gods. That's what the game is. You've got Kratos catching bodies left, right and center. Whether it's basic enemies, your trolls, your whatever, or the gods. And the way he dispatches these gods are iconic. Literally iconic. The boss battles themselves, whether you think the quality of the boss battles are, great, they're iconic regardless. And the way he kills them and the way he interacts with them, iconic. How he does Hercules in this game, pummels his face until it looks like a mashed potato, iconic. How he does, is it Helios? No, Hermes, the one that can sprint fast, holding him upside down, chopping off the leg, iconic. How he does Poseidon, gouge the eyes out, throw him off a cliff, iconic. In fact, these bodies, you could tell, man, this game's just crazy. This game's just really crazy. It's violence and rage and brutality just personified on a disc. That's what that game is, man. That game's crazy. Kratos is the definition of I woke up and chose violence. That nigga's insane in that game, and I love it. I'll forever love it. And it's the game itself and the experience it gave me. Because like I said, I was 15 when I played it, and that Titan mode was really hard. And up until that point, when I was 15 years old, Titan mode on God of War 3 was one of the hardest games I played. And because this was before Dark Souls as well, so it was before I played any From Software game. It was only Demon Souls that existed at that time, so it was one of the hardest experiences I had. And I remember spending hours upon hours on Hades, and then hours again on Zeus in that game, and the sense of accomplishment I felt when I beat Hades and when I actually beat the game itself and got the Platinum Trophy. It's one of my gaming highlights in general. And then by the time that the remaster came out 5 years later, I was ready to go again, and I found the Titan mode a lot easier that time. But I love God of War 3, and I could talk about that game so much that I could probably do a separate video about God of War 3, and that might be something I end up doing down the line, because I have so much to say about that game and why I love that game so much. But these games like really expanded my knowledge and love for Greek mythology, just with the way that they took the legends, took the characters and the figures, and kind of did their own interpretation and mixed it in with Kratos' story. I just really, really appreciated it. I actually have a tattoo of Zeus from God of War 3 on my arm. I would show you, but it's faded out a little, and it would be hard to show in the video. I mean, well, it's there. Don't know if you could really see it. It has faded out a bit. The light's hitting it kind of awkwardly. But yeah, I got this tattoo when I was like 20, 21 years old. I wanted a representation of God on my arm, and I thought, let me get a fantasy rendition of God. And I thought, yeah, Zeus from God of War 3, hit two birds with one stone, represent a god on my arm, but also pay homage to one of my favorite video games. But yeah, I love the franchise, man. I love this franchise, and I love the character of Kratos. Kratos is one of my favorite video game characters, one of my favorite fictional characters across all mediums. God of War Ascension, that came out in 2013. Now, I came to the realization literally about a month ago, or a couple months ago, when I started playing it through again. I never finished God of War Ascension. And it was that thing, because I remember when this game was teased and when it came out, there was that entire thought, but everyone had the same thoughts. How on earth are you going to top God of War 3 with a prequel? There's just no way. We've just had the most epic conclusion. And that's another thing I love about God of War, is how epic the game is, the scale in which God of War 3, the scale is incredible. Even by today's standards, the scale of God of War 3 is phenomenal. And graphically as well, actually, I forgot to mention that. With God of War 3, I remember thinking, when I first played that on PS3, I remember thinking to myself, this is a PS3 game in 2010 that looks like what I would probably expect a PS4 game to look like down the line. Incredible. And I haven't played the PS3 version of God of War 3 in a long time, but the PS4 remaster still looks incredibly impressive. But anyway, with God of War Ascension, you get another prequel. This, if I'm correct, God of War Ascension is literally at the start of the chronological order of games. So the very beginning. So you've gone from one of the most epic conclusions to jumping right to the start. It kind of kills the momentum and interest. And I think a lot of people had that issue with Ascension. And to be honest, it's no fault of the game itself, but just conceptually, it's a hard thing to pull off when you go from the end of a story that ended so strongly to right at the beginning, and expecting people to have that same level of investment when the stakes are different now, because we know how it literally all ends. But yeah, I actually need to go back and finish it, because I never actually finished it. I think I got bored with it back then and never went back to it. This leads me on to God of War 2018. Where they really switch things up. And before I actually start on that, the soundtrack for these games I absolutely love. Very, very epic. Even playing through the first game this past weekend, the soundtrack's really, really impressive, and it still is. And there's actually a track on the soundtrack in the first game that is very reminiscent of a record from the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. I can't remember which specific one. I can't even remember how it sounds at this present time, but I just remember as I was playing the game, I was like, this sounds very much like it's trying to copy some music from Lord of the Rings. But yeah, God of War 2018 came out, switched up the whole thing, brought Kratos into the Norse pantheon, and what an epic game that was as well. It took its time, told a great story, had a lot of emotion, showed us a different side to Kratos, which I really appreciate. I can kind of relate to as well. A more calm, subdued Kratos, a more wise and older Kratos who's kind of let that rage pass him by and is learning to grow. into a better individual for the sake of his son. And there were a lot of standout moments in that game for me as well. I think a standout moment for every fan, especially long-time fans, was seeing him get the Blades of Chaos and wrap them around his hand. And you had the axe for the whole of the game and up into the halfway point, and for him to then get the original weapons, it was such a hype moment. And from the moment Athena appeared on screen in the game, I was just yelling at the screen, going crazy. And that scene was just so incredibly strong. It's probably one of the most impactful set pieces, scenes, sequences, whatever you want to call it, I've ever experienced in a video game, in terms of just evoking emotions out of me. And the way that game ended as well was it ended so strongly with the reveal of Atreus being Loki and the prophecy. But like I said before, I rarely play games multiple times, so I've actually only ever played God of War 2018 once, and that was back in 2018, so there's actually quite a lot of that game that I can't remember. I was going to watch a recap video before playing Ragnarok, and I might still do that, but then I might not, because I'm probably going to go straight back into playing that after Ragnarok. But what a fantastic game. And now that leads us on to Ragnarok, which, like I said, 4 years of hype and excitement for this game is, I would have bought a PS5 regardless, but it is like the reason I bought a PS5 in terms of the game I was looking forward to the most, my most anticipated PS5 game. I've been looking forward to this game before it was officially announced. Literally from the moment the 2018 version ended, I've been waiting for this. From the moment I saw that post-credit scene of Thor's hammer, been waiting for this. And I'm just expecting the unexpected with this game, to be completely honest. I'm aware that they're gonna take elements of legends and Norse myth and probably do their own thing with it, to blend it in and combine it with Kratos and Atreus' story to do something completely new. And I'm really excited to experience that for the first time. I'm probably going to go on a blackout on social media, if I'm honest, because I don't want anything spoiled. I'm very, very fussy, in particular over spoilers, when it comes to things I love. And this is something I've been waiting on. If this was to get spoiled for me, I'd be very upset. And I know that elements of the game leaked online a couple weeks ago, so it was already out there. But as soon as this game drops, it's like the chains are off then, no pun intended again. And the spoilers are going to go out. People are going to be sharing screenshots, all of that stuff. Twitter's going to be posting shit unprovoked. You can mute all the words on Twitter and still see spoilers, because people will just post images without any of the words. I'm not risking it, so I'm probably going to lock myself off the internet until I beat the game. And frustratingly, although the game is out tomorrow, I'm going to be in London, so I'm not actually going to be able to play it until when I get back, which is probably going to be late tomorrow evening. I'm not going to be able to actually sink a substantial amount of time into this game until the weekend. So I got to survive and dodge spoilers into that point, having not even really played much of the game compared to everyone else who's going to be playing it flat out. I'm not even risking it. I'm barely going to be on the internet this weekend. And on this actual weekend, I'm probably going to just switch my phone off and just literally play the game non-stop. Probably going to do that. But yeah, I mean, I don't even have any real predictions for what I think is going to happen in the game. I don't really like to predict, events of a game anymore, because that just leads to kind of false expectation and disappointment. I'd rather just see what they've cooked up. One thing I'm very curious about is the Aesir, which is like the pantheon of gods within Norse mythology. I don't know how many of them are going to feature in this game. But I'm intrigued to find out, and I think that this game does have the potential to dethrone God of War 3 as my favorite God of War game. And I kind of have a sneaking suspicion they might do a similar thing like God of War 3 did, which is kind of put a lot of these gods in the path of Atreus and Kratos, and you're probably going to see quite a few bodies fall. In interesting ways, though. I don't think it's going to be as straight up and direct as God of War 3 in terms of Kratos just literally going through and killing everybody, but I think it's going to get real interesting with the gods they do reveal. Of course, I believe Odin's going to be in the game, but for this two-part saga, I'm so incredibly excited to experience this game in its entirety. And yeah, I guess I've said enough. Been talking for 26 minutes. But I love God of War, man. God of War is one of my favorite franchises in video games and in general. Kratos is one of my favorite characters in general. And yeah. I would say I haven't been excited for a game like this in a long time, but that would be a lie, because Elden Ring, got a lot of hype out of me. But if we ignore Elden Ring or any other FromSoft game, this is the most excited I've been for a video game in a very long time. And the crazy thing is, I'm just very confident, even prior to the reviews coming out, which I've been dodging anyway. I've always been confident. I've always been confident that this will be a game that I love. I can just sense it. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm gonna love this game. And maybe that's a dangerous precedent to start the game with, because that could lead to disappointment, but I'm just so confident. Nah, I feel like I'm gonna love it. And yeah, I mean, I could talk for another half an hour, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna save it for now. But I just wanted to talk about this franchise for a bit, because I love it so much. But subscribe if you're new here, because I will be ranking the franchise and reviewing the new game when it comes out, as well as reviewing films. Black Panther's out this week, of course, and mangas, anime, music, all of that stuff. So hit the subscribe button if you want to, and hit the like button please as well if you enjoyed the video. That'll help me out. And then comment below, let me know your thoughts on the things I've said, but then tell me your thoughts on the franchise as a whole. What was your first God of War game? What's your favorite God of War game? How excited are you for Ragnarok? Let me know, and I'll speak to you guys very soon. Next video will probably be Black Panther review, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to beat this game, because I'm really going to take my time, so it might be a few weeks, but whenever I do beat the game, you'll get 2 reviews from me and a ranking video, probably some more videos about God of War as well. But until then, I hope all of you guys that are looking forward to, guys and girls, all of you guys and girls that are looking forward to God of War Ragnarok, I hope you enjoy it. It's very rare that we get these moments. We used to get them a lot, but it's very rare nowadays that we get these moments with video games that feel like an actual moment, like a big moment. I mean, to be honest, Elden Ring was that this year, but for like a real story-driven game, a big moment to soak up the release of a game that's highly anticipated. We gotta appreciate those moments, because those are the moments we'll remember as fans. And yeah, I just hope everyone watching this video, if you're a fan of the game, that you get your hands on it, you soak it up, you enjoy it as much as you want to, and that you can experience the game with no spoilers and have a blast. Enjoy this moment. Yeah, that's all I got to say for now anyway, but I'll catch you guys soon.